Quartz .NET is a job scheduling framework that we have access to when we're building C# applications, but there are some best practices that we want to follow when using more advanced features like listeners. Hi, my name is Nick Cosentino, and I'm a Principal Software Engineering Manager at Microsoft. In previous videos, I talked about using listeners of different kinds, and you can check that out here if you haven't seen it already. In that video, we just looked through some basic functionality, doing some console write lines and checking out the different methods that we had access to. However, in this video, I want to talk about some best practices that the Quartz.net team has published in their documentation, and that way you can do a better job building listeners. If that sounds interesting, remember to subscribe to the channel and check out that pinned comment for my courses on Dome Train. But with that said, let's jump over to Visual Studio and check out some best practices for listeners. Alright, the first thing that I want to focus on when we're talking about listeners is the concept that they mention in the documentation, which is to make them lightweight. They should feel fast, they shouldn't be doing something that isn't very complicated, and the reason for that is because it's going to influence the job that you're going to be executing, right? So if I go to modify some of the listeners that we have here, and just to kind of step through them very quickly, if I scroll up a little bit, you can see that I have this custom job listener. So this has methods that will get executed specifically around the job execution. And down here is the trigger listener, right? So on screen, what's being highlighted, these methods are specifically for the trigger that's triggering the job. We have these different methods that we can hook into, do different things. And if we were to simulate something that would take longer, we might be able to see something kind of interesting with the behavior of the jobs. The reason that this is important is because when you're scheduling jobs and you want them to fire at certain times or at certain intervals, that can get all sorts of messed up if your different listeners are taking way longer than you might expect, right? So what I want to do is try simulating what happens if we wait a little bit too long in these different cases, right? And when I say too long, I don't mean that we're going to have some condition that's going to mess it all up for us, but I want to simulate waiting in different areas, and we can see the side effect of what that looks like for our job. To explain what I mean by that, if I scroll up a little bit and we look at the trigger that we have here, we can see that we have this job trigger. This is going to say starting at, you can see on line 49, in 5 seconds from now. Okay, so the goal will be when this application starts up, you can see a little bit lower that I'm scheduling the job right here on line 75. So the application starts up, and in 5 seconds from now, once it started, we should be able to see that our job runs. It's just going to print to the console. But what happens if we wait too long inside of these different listeners? What's the effect of that, right? So scrolling back down, in the previous video that I linked that earlier, you should be able to see, if I find it on my screen, we have this job to be executed. This listener method will fire before the job's body, the primary body for the job, gets run. So if we were to wait too long here, that's going to defer the execution. But the other thing is this trigger fired part, right? This also runs, in fact, before that other method we just saw. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go say this is async, right? So let me go make this method async specifically, and I will do an await task.delay, and then we can wait some period of time, right? I want to simulate this so that I can talk as it's running. So we'll do from seconds, and maybe we'll do another 5 seconds here. Okay, and then I'm going to write to the console, Copilot, anything creative, trigger fired after delay. Excellent. That's good enough for me. And then we don't need that return at the end. We're going to simulate this trigger fired delay, and then I'm going to also just copy this and put it up to job to be executed. Okay, so same idea, make this async, and then I'm going to put this here. Before we move on, this is just a reminder that I do have courses available on Dome Train if you want to level up in your C# programming. If you head over to Dome Train, you can see that I have a course bundle that has my Getting Started and Deep Dive courses on C#. Between the two of these, that's 11 hours of programming in the C# language, taking you from absolutely no programming experience to being able to build basic applications. You'll learn everything about variables, loops, a bit of async programming, and object-oriented programming as well. Make sure to check it out. This will say job, or maybe we'll see if Copilot comes up with something more creative, because I'm terrible at naming things, and I love Copilot for, there we go, that's good. Better than I could probably do on the spot. So these two sleeps, or these delays, right, we're going to simulate these happening before the job gets to be run. So I'm going to press play. This should wait basically a total of 10 seconds before we should have seen the job actually write to the console. So let's go try it and see. Okay, so the application has started up. trigger fired. Now we're waiting that 5 seconds. There it goes. Okay, so the job to be executed another 5 seconds. Remember, the job should have run already by now. And then we end up seeing this is the dependency, and then the merge job data. This is from an earlier video. So the merge job data is the message from the trigger. So this is where the job was supposed to essentially execute right away, but we had a total of 10 seconds of delay before this was fired. So if you truly wanted to make sure that things were firing at the appropriate time, you really want to reduce the amount of time that you're spending in these listeners. So that's one of the first best practices that comes from the Quartz documentation around leveraging listeners. You can have the same effect, right? If you end up putting this type of delay inside of the other listener methods, you are going to be deferring execution of other things. Of course, the code that you're running in these listeners, it's not instantaneous. That's just reality, right? Any line of code you write is not going to be instantaneous, but you don't want to spend too much time because you will have an effect on the things that you're running. That is pro tip number 1 from the Quartz documentation. But the other thing that they talk about is not just delays, but what happens if you throw exceptions. If we have these listeners and they do something bad, what's going to happen to your job? So I'm going to get rid of these delays. And maybe a good thing to do is let's get this back to returning a completed task. And I'm going to copy that line. I'm going to go ahead and put that back down here as well. Putting these back to normal. Okay, this is how they started off. Now there's no delays. We're just going to throw exceptions. So on the trigger fired, let's go ahead and throw an exception here. So we will do throw new invalid operation exception. Oh, no. So we will throw that, and we don't need this here. What's going to happen when we fire the trigger and instead the listener here is going to throw an exception, right? So if we go ahead and run this, we'll see the effect. So after 5 seconds, we should get an exception. There it is. There's the debugger hitting it. I'm going to press F5. And what happens to our job? Right? The job didn't run. So you can bake in error handling for your Quartz jobs, but the point here is that we aren't able to do what we expected because our listener is throwing an exception. So you have to be very careful. If you are going to be having more complex code running inside of these different listeners, whether it's the job listener, or in this case, this is going to be the trigger listener, this can have a very negative side effect on the jobs that you're trying to schedule. So what does it say in here? It says unable to notify trigger listeners while firing trigger. So in fact, if there was this chain of execution for triggers and listeners in this particular case, it's going to break everything downstream. There's an exception thrown. Those other listeners can't run, right? So trigger and job will not be fired. Important to note. So what do they recommend doing? Well, they essentially say that you should have a try-catch around basically everything. So this entire block should be in a try-catch. That way you can do some appropriate error handling. Make sure that you're not letting exceptions bubble outside of this. Personally, if I were building an API like this, if I knew that I had things where people could accidentally be throwing exceptions, if I had the design decision to say, okay, up to every implementer to go put a try-catch in place, instead, I would probably design it. This is just my personal preference to be able to say, okay, you can do whatever you want here. If you throw an exception, we're going to go do something about it and allow the other things to execute or make it so that there is a result pattern. So I can understand in their case, they are catching an exception. The whole application didn't get torn down, right? They are catching an exception at some level and then logging out information to say that things will not continue to execute. So they are doing that to some degree, but they do still expect you to have your own try-catch in here so that the flow of execution can continue. One thing that you can do is, like they said, put a try-catch around this whole block. And this is the same for every listener method, by the way, not just for trigger fired. So I'm not going to walk through them all individually to explain it. Just using this one as an example, but instead of putting a try-catch around here, for me, what I've liked to do is I built a little helper method and I've called it safely. And basically, if we just look at it down here, I just have a couple of variations of this. And in my own projects, I actually have something that's like this, and I'll explain it very briefly. And it's built in a result pattern as well. So instead of putting a try-catch block around things, and like I've mentioned, my implementation of this in my personal projects is a little bit more advanced. I basically build a logger into it. I have my own result type. I'm using the very popular one of type for this example here, but it just has a try-catch in it. in this very simple example, it's not doing anything fancy, but what it is doing for us is that it's making it look like that we have a result pattern. So I'm going to show you very quickly how I like to use this. This variation below is just not returning a type, right? So this one is a func, and this one is a func of the task instead of a task t. And the idea is that you either return an exception when there's an error, or you return the result of the thing that you were executing. So because there is no return type, what we can do instead is do something like this. And Copilot was very helpful here. We need an await. Oops, and there's too much stuff going on. Copilot, you were close, but you did too much. So this idea is basically going to allow us to say anything we run, it's just like a try catch. I just prefer the syntax and the styling this way. So I can say, right, and then if I wanted to, let's say error is not null. Right, you can put your own logging telemetry stuff here. This is my approach. Like I said, it's very much like having a try catch, but I build my own helper methods like this to allow different syntax. I just prefer it. I just wanted to kind of throw it into this to make it a little bit more interesting. And I also mentioned that in mine, this kind of logging thing that's done here, I end up building logging and telemetry into this helper method itself. So just a different thing to think about, but the whole point of this one was to call out this best practice they recommend, which is to not be throwing exceptions. So what we covered in this video was 2 best practices to use for listeners. The first one was don't take too long in these listener methods. You can see the impact of that, pushing out the job being run. If you wanted it scheduled for 5 seconds or some time, it will defer the execution. And the second part was that you don't want these listener methods to throw exceptions because they will break behavior of things that are downstream. So they do recommend you put a try catch in place, or like I showed you very briefly here, that I have my own helper methods that basically do a try catch under the hood. I hope that you found that helpful. Quartz is a super powerful library. There's lots of things to hook into, lots of flexibility and control. So I highly recommend you give it a try, and let me know what you think in the comments if you're going to be using Quartz in the applications you're building. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.